with being able to memorize some scripture. I'm starting to work on memorizing portions of scripture, so it's really helped me a lot.
Yep. So we're about to be live right now. We're getting into Exodus 26 to 30. So we'll be starting there. And I think we're live actually at this moment because I think it's went through. Yep. All right. So shalom, everyone. Let me get my camera going, of course. There we go. Shalom, everyone. Shalom, YouTube. Those on Facebook will see this video probably later on at some point this weekend. I'll be sharing it to Facebook for our brothers and sisters out there that might not see it on YouTube. So just wanted to say Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. We are the Wicked by Yahuwah Assembly. I'm here with brother Yahusha, brother Joshua today. And also I got my mom over here, Sister Sharon. And I believe Sister Milka was trying to get on, so she should be on soon. I might have missed to admit her a second ago, so she should be, we will try to get her back on. So we're going to be doing Exodus 26 to 30. If we get farther, great, but that's really the goal, is at least 4 chapters every Sabbath. So, all right, so let me just fix this taskbar here. All right, so Exodus 26, and just FYI, guys, I think 27 is going to give us some trouble with the verse numberings. Just FYI, it's going to get a little weird. So just keep an eye out for that. All right, so let me get my microphone. Exodus 26, the 10 curtains. So this is the chapter about setting tabernacle and the order, Yahuwah's actual commands about how to set up the tabernacle in the wilderness. So they're not actually doing it. This is the first time he gives the commandments of it. So I don't want you to get confused with when we get to chapter 40, when Moses and them actually do it physically. So this is the actual first time they're giving commandments how to set up the tabernacle. Okay, so you got the 10 curtains. So that's what we're going to start with here. So it says, verse 1, and you shall make the tabernacle 10 curtains of fine linen spun. Your version might not have the word spun there. And blue and purple and scarlet spun. Cherubs, you shall make them with the work of a weaver. So part of the decoration of the curtains they were actually drawing, or you could say however you want to say it, they were making cherubs within the actual curtain. So yeah, and the length of one curtain shall be 28 cubits. One curtain shall be the breadth of 4 cubits, and there shall be the same measure to all curtains. And the 5 curtains shall be joined one to another. 5 curtains shall be closely connected, the one with the other. Okay, and you shall make them for loops of blue on the edge of one curtain on one side for the coupling. I think Sister Milka is coming in right here. Let me admit her. Okay, so we're at for those just coming in, we're at Exodus 26 verse 4. So you got blue on the edge of one curtain on the side for the coupling, and so shall you make on the edge of the outer curtain for the second coupling. 50 loops shall you make for one curtain, and 50 loops shall you make on the part of the curtain answering to the coupling of the second opposite, corresponding to each other at each point. And you shall make 50 golden rings, and you shall join the curtains to each other with the rings, and it shall be one tabernacle. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. And you shall make for a covering of the tabernacle skins with the hair on it. You shall make them 11 skins. Now, this I'm assuming is the goat's hair here. That's what this is. Okay. And the length of one skin, 30 cubits, and the breadth of one skin, 4 cubits. There shall be the same measure to the 11 skins. Okay. And you shall join the 5 skins together and the 6 skins together, and you shall double the 6 skin in front of the tabernacle. You shall make 50 loops on the border of one skin, which is in the midst of for the joinings, and you shall make 50 loops on the edge of the second skin that joins it. Okay. And you shall make 50 brazen rings, and you shall join the rings by the loops, and you shall join the skins, and they shall be one. I wonder if the number 50 is being used purposely, like you see the Jubilee, the number for the Jubilee is 50. You got 50 weeks to 50 days to Pentecost. I kind of wonder if 50 is like very intentional by Yahuwah here. And you shall fix at the end that which is over in the skins of the tabernacle, the half of the skin that is left shall you fold over. According to the overplus of the skins of the tabernacle, you shall fold it over behind the tabernacle. A cubit on this side and a cubit on that side of that which remains of the skins of the length of the skins of the tabernacle. It shall be folding over the sides of the tabernacle on this side and that side, that it may cover it. And you shall make for a covering of the tabernacle ram skins dyed red, and blue skins as coverings above. Okay. So far, the 2 colors we have so far are red and blue. And you also have the gold rings. You have the brazen, actually might be brazen rings, and I think there was gold couplings or something like that. So you have gold, blue, and red. So we haven't seen the purple yet. Okay, let's see here. Boards of the tabernacle and their sockets and their bars. So we're getting to that portion here. You shall make the posts of the tabernacle of incorruptible wood. I really like how the net translates this. The net Septuagint says decay resistible wood. So basically it's talking about, when it says incorruptible wood, it's talking about wood that doesn't decay easily. So I kind of like how the net translated that, the net version of the LXX. Of 10 cubits shall you make one post, and the breadth of one post of a cubit and a half. Right, 2 joints, verse 17, 2 joints shall you make in one post, answering the one to the other. So shall you do to all the posts of the tabernacle. Now, Mom, does yours say posts? You might say what, pillar?
Frames.
Okay, frames. Okay, because I know they also talk about pillars too at some point. Okay, and you shall make posts to the tabernacle, 20 posts on the north side. Okay. And you shall make the 20 posts, for the 20 posts, 40 silver sockets, 2 sockets to one post on both sides, and 2 sockets to the other post on the other side. So interesting, silver for the sockets. Interesting. And for the next sides towards the south, 20 posts. And there are 40 silver sockets, 2 sockets to one post on both sides, and 2 sockets to the other post, both on its sides. And on the back of the tabernacle, at the part which is toward, you shall make 6 posts. So the reason I didn't read west there, it's indicating that it's in italics. So that's why I didn't read west there. But I'm assuming that, like the translator assumed, that it is talking about the west side. So that's probably why he put that there, to help the reader understand where that commandment is. Tabernacle, they're supposed to put it. So you shall make 2 posts on the corners of the tabernacle behind. Okay, and it shall be equal below
they shall be equal toward the same part from the heads to one joining. So shall you make to both the two corners. Let them be equal. And there shall be 8 posts, and there's 16 silver sockets, 2 sockets to one post on both of its sides, and 2 sockets to the other post. Okay, verse 26. And you shall make bars of decay-resistible wood, 5 to one post on one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars to one post on the second side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars to the hinder posts on the side of the tabernacle toward the sea. So yours might have a direction. The Septuagint says towards the sea. So I don't know. Does yours give like actual literal word for word?
West and east, yeah. And,
okay. All right. Because, yeah, sometimes the Septuagint paraphrases. So towards the sea is whatever direction you have there. Let the bar in the middle between the posts go through from one side to the other side. So now you have a bar in between the posts. And you shall gild the posts, and gild would be what, like grade it, like overlay it.
Okay, so yeah, overlay.
Yeah. So gild is like another word for overlay. The post with gold, you shall make golden rings into which you shall introduce the bars, and you shall. Stupid microphone here fell apart for a second. Into which you shall introduce the bars. You shall gild the bars with gold. So we're at verse 30 here. And you shall set up the tabernacle according to the pattern shown you in the mountain. Very key there. So everything he's giving Moshe here from verse 1 all the way down to here, Moshe actually saw this at the mountain through the cloud. Mm-hmm. He actually saw a vision from heaven, basically, like of what Yahuwah's dwelling place is supposed to look like. Like, it's the concept of everything on earth is a pattern or shadow of the heavenlies. Hence the prayer, the master's prayer, let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The earth is a shadow of heaven. So whatever he saw in heavenlies, he has to make it exactly according. Okay, so verse 31, and you shall make a veil of blue, purple, and scarlet woven. Fine linen spun you shall make it cherubs woven work. So again, he's weaving in the image of cherubs on these on the veil. Okay. All right, and you shall set it up 4 posts of incorruptible wood overlaid with gold, and their tops gold, and their 4 sockets of silver. And you shall put the veil on the post. You shall carry it in there with the veil, the ark of the covenant, and the veil shall make a separation for you between the set apart and most set apart. So basically, like between regular set apart and like where Yahuwah is going to be dwelling. His actual part of the temple or tabernacle where Yahuwah would be actually, his presence would be there, right above the Ark of the Covenant and mercy seat. That's the most set apart place. That's like the inner veil. And you shall screen with the veil the Ark of the Covenant in the most set apart place. Okay. And you shall set the table outside the veil. So the table of showbread is to be outside the veil. Mm-hmm. And the candlestick, aka menorah, what we call today the menorah, opposite the table on the south side of the tabernacle, you shall put the table on the north side of the tabernacle. Okay, so the table of showbread is to be put on the north side of the tabernacle. Okay, now we're at verse 36, the hangings of the door. So I'm assuming this is the curtains to be put on like the entrance of the tabernacle, like the entrance door. You shall make a screen for the door of the tabernacle of blue, purple, and spun scarlet, and fine linen spun, the work of the embroider. Okay, so Like I said, at certain points, you're going to see very weird verse numbering issues here. So just bear with me here. I have to scroll down until the next verse here. There we go. All right. So verse 37 here. And you shall make for the veil 5 posts, and you shall gild them with gold. Okay. So you're making a veil, and you're gilding the veil with gold. Okay. And their chapiters shall be gold, and you shall cast for them brazen sockets. So that's the end of chapter 26. There's a lot in there. Like I really recommend, if you're getting confused by these descriptions, like look up on Google Images, like what the tabernacle would look like, just to kind of get a visual. Some of us are visual learners. I'm a visual learner. So the Rose book me and my mom have, that Bible chart book, actually has pictures to accompany this. So like when you're reading, we haven't even gotten to the priest garments yet, but when you start getting to the priest garment chapters and all that, it gets confusing. It's like, okay, you got this, you got the inner garments, you got the girdle, you got the shoulder piece of the priest garments. You know, certain translations make it very difficult with how they word the turban. And so it's really good to have like some type of visual aid when you're reading those chapters.
Wikipedia has excellent pictures of the garments and the gems that are on, like the ephod and so forth. There's some really good pictures on there.
Yeah. So we had a lot here. So we obviously you have the curtains, you have the goat's hair being put also on top of the tabernacle as an outer covering. You have the posts being mentioned with the frames. You know, you got the veil being mentioned. So this is just like a sample size of how the tabernacle is supposed to look. And they haven't even, I don't even think they got into the pillars yet and all the other stuff, because there's going to be, we got into the sockets, we got into the posts, and all that. So, but you see here, there's something important about the colors. I still haven't figured it out yet, but there's something important about the colors. What I do find interesting is that Yahusha, when you look at the Basora accounts, one account says he had a purple robe, the other one says he had a red robe. And what's interesting is either one of those are one of these colors mentioned. So I just find it interesting. So regardless, I personally don't think it's a contradiction. It's very possible they could have put both a purple and a red robe on him. So that's just my opinion on that. But I don't think it has to be one or the other. Anyway, but I just find it interesting that either one of those colors are one of the colors of the tabernacle. So I just find that interesting. And we see 50 was used a lot in this chapter. Like I said before, Yahuwah uses the number 50 a lot when it comes to his Torah. Like you got, like I said, the year of the Jubilee, you got Shavuot, you got all these different things he uses the number 50 for. So there's probably a reason he's talking about 50 gold. What was it? 50 golden rings and all that. So go ahead, brother Yahusha.
When you get to, so you have a veil that's blue, purple, and scarlet, leading into the most set apart place. And when you look at Christianity, when you look at our walk, they would go past the veil, into the set apart place to meet with Yahuwah. So when you look at Christianity, when they go, where they go is they go into their Circe, to meet with, their mighty one. But they're missing the horror is missing the blue, right? It's just the purple and scarlet. And when you look at the blue, you see the blue on the tzitzit, right? Representing the Torah, reminding us of the Torah. And that's the one thing that the whore doesn't have, is the Torah. Granted, she doesn't have Yahusha either, but you get my point.
Yeah. And I think the reason, she even has the other colors is because the heathens pretty much copied Yahuwah with the whole red and purple. I think to the heathen, red and purple just means royalty in general. So regardless whether scripture says that or not, it's historically proven that's what they use red and purple for in the world. And to them, it's royalty. So their inclination of using those colors probably in the Circe is just to think, well, we're royalty, the mother church. So they probably don't even use it for the right reasons either. They use it for to puff themselves up, to make her look like, oh, I'm the mother and you're all my daughters, and So I agree with you though. The blue definitely represents the Torah. It's very obvious of that. That's why the sapphire. It's very subtle, but Yahuwah hints that that's exactly what the original tablets were made out of sapphire stone, which is a deep sea blue, very dark blue. And so, multiple times in scripture, we see that blue represents his Torah, whether it's the tzitzis, the sapphire tablets of the 10 sayings. Multiple times that's representing his Torah. And like you said, they don't have the Torah, so they are not. It's almost like Yahuwah didn't allow them to use that blue. It's almost like he was like, no, you're not gonna copy the color that represents my law. But yeah, to the heathen, from what I've looked into, they use red and purple a lot because they look at it as secular. Meaning is that it means royalty. Not saying, again, I'm not claiming that red and purple scripturally means royalty. So I just want to make that clear. But to the world, that's what they think those colors are. That's why you see every kingdom of this world really uses a variation of that. Of red and purple, purple, even Sacramento, like to use the NBA, for example, right? You got a Sacramento team called the Kings, right? What color they use? Purple. Oh, that's not by coincidence. They call them the Kings. So they believe that somewhere along the line, the human tradition of purple representing royalty in the heathen world came about somehow. So, but I don't know where it came from. I just know that it's like a universal secular understanding. So that's why they use purple a lot. That's why a lot of kingdoms use purple a lot or red a lot, because to them it represents that. Red is also supposed to represent, sometimes red by tradition would represent passion or lust or sin. So I find it interesting that, in a heathen way that the Catholic Church has red as one of their colors. Because that red can have good meanings to it, but it could also have bad meanings to it, because the secular world would look at red like, lust and passion and violence or killing, anger. A lot of people interpret red to mean anger, so, it's like a double-edged sword, that color red. To the wicked, it would represent, all their evil inclinations of their heart in a way. It's interesting. Colors mean a lot of things. Colors.
Interesting that you have a couple chapters before, you have Yahuwah stripping every one of their fine garments. He tells them, take off your fine linen, your fine garments, but then he clothes the priests in all these, fine linen and fine garments, and but only the priests, not the people. I don't know what there is to that. I just what came to my mind. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think at that point too, Yahuwah was already phasing in like that Levitical priesthood at that point, and because you had the golden calf incident and all that. Well, actually, that would have been before the golden calf. Let me correct myself. So, but I think even in Yahuwah's mind at that point, he was already starting to separate the people from the priests, and already starting to have like this sacrificial system where, because of sin, the people couldn't go up to the mountain, and people couldn't, go near Yahuwah's presence. So he had to send the priests, he had to send Aaron. Even the regular elders were not even allowed up there. And it was really mainly Aaron and Masha that were allowed up there in the cloud and all that. So yeah, there's definitely some type of purpose to that, what you just mentioned. There's either a foreshadowing to the Levitical priesthood, or there's something that he was trying to point out. But I find it interesting. He did say to them, take off your esteemed apparel. Usually that happens a lot when you're mourning. You put different clothes on it culturally.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, like that would happen a lot.
Mourning clothes.
With the Hebrews, they would, if they're mourning for someone, they're putting on darker clothes. That's the one thing the Jesus of Nazareth movie actually got correct, or the TV series, I should say. The TV series, Jesus of Nazareth, showed, who was it? No.
Well, Mary.
Joseph's mother, right?
Yeah.
Joseph's mother was wearing like dark garments, and it seems like she was mourning.
Joseph's mother.
Yeah.
No, that was
that was Miriam's mother.
Mary's mother.
Okay,
yes.
so but it showed her mother basically wear all
Right.
black garments, and she's
Mhm.
like in mourning clothing.
Died,
So that seemed to be in their culture, and Yahuwah given that commandment kind of still flowed with that culture. Like, okay, like because isn't it in the same chapter, Mom, where Yahuwah tells Moshe to tell him, listen, I know you're a rebellious bunch, and I would consume them. Yahuwah is about to make Moshe another nation. Then Moshe tells them, Yahuwah
For
says,
your name, yeah.
no, well, Yahuwah tells Moshe to tell them take off your esteemed apparel.
Right.
So it seems like,
Yeah, same chapter.
because Yahuwah made them upset and they started to mourn, Yahuwah's like, all right, you got to take that off. I'm not going to have you mourn with your esteemed apparel on.
Yeah.
So, because they started crying because Yahuwah was treating them like a father sometimes has to chasten his son or daughter. It's like, listen, you're a rebellious bunch. I know you don't want to listen to me, and you're going to whine and complain. If it wasn't for Masha, he would have killed them at once after the golden calf.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of that has to do with mourning. From what I've looked into their culture, a lot of that has to do with mourning and mourning for the dead. And so it's kind of interesting, though, as we go along, we're going to see Yahuwah starts to not change, but add to his law about certain things about mourning for the dead. And even Levites have certain restrictions that they can't necessarily mourn even for a relative unless there's a certain type of relative, like a virgin sister or what have it. So I was just reading Leviticus 10 this week, and I was noticing that he didn't allow Aaron to mourn for his own sons. He told the children of Israel, like, go ahead, mourn for Nadab and Abihu, but Levites, you're not allowed to do that. Like, so he's like already foreshadowing chapter 21, where he gives like a whole big list of how they're supposed to mourn for the dead and all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Ezekiel wasn't allowed to mourn either.
Yeah, well,
his wife died and all that.
he wasn't allowed to mourn, or he wasn't allowed to bury her?
He wasn't allowed to mourn.
Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, yeah, I don't remember that much about Ezekiel. Okay. So he wasn't allowed to mourn for her. Yeah, he could have been a priest. We don't know much about him. He could have been a priest. Wasn't he from Judah?
Yeah.
So he could have been a Levite. That could have been actually within the law. And why Yahuwah was telling him to do that. I really don't know. I know that there seems to be a lot of proof for Jeremiah being a priest of that lineage. But I don't know about Ezekiel. I would have to check with that to confirm that. I really don't know. But if he was a Levite, it would make perfect sense for Yahuwah to tell him not to mourn for his wife. It seems like that they could only mourn for certain types of their family members, like especially with the female family members, it was specific for the priests. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff in this chapter that we went through. I really like how the cherubs are talked about being woven into the fabric of the curtains. It reminds me of King Solomon's temple, where you kind of see. That's the kind of cool study to do too, would be to read about King Solomon's temple, paralleling it with the tabernacle, and see how many similarities there are. There's a lot, especially with the cherubs. Now, instead of the curtains, for whatever reason, I think he interwoven the cherubs in his temple in the walls. if I remember correctly. So there's like a little difference, but not much. So for whatever reason, Yahuwah didn't feel the need to tell Solomon how to make the temple that he was building for him, which is kind of interesting. You don't really see Yahuwah saying to Solomon, like he said to Moshe here, make it according to the pattern I've shown you. Like you kind of just see him being very liberal with Solomon, kind of letting him, make it how he's going to make it.
But what you do see is David giving him the blueprints, and David would have very definitely known the tabernacle. So I just want to make that mention.
Okay, yeah, I must have overlooked that. I didn't even realize he did that. Okay, so yeah, that's interesting though. So that means Yahuwah would have wanted the temple to be a little different. That's interesting. That's interesting. Huh. That's some food for thought there. Very interesting. All right, so we're about to do chapter 27. Mom, would you like to read?
Certainly.
All right.
Okay. The altar of burnt offering. Build an altar of acacia wood, 3 cubits high. It is to be square, 5 cubits long and 5 cubits wide. Make a horn at each of the 4 corners, so that the horns and the altar are of one piece, and overlay the altar with bronze. Make all its utensils of bronze, its pots to remove the ashes, and its shovels, sprinkling bowls, meat, forks, and fire pans. Make a grating for it, a bronze network, and make a bronze ring at each of the 4 corners of the network. Put it under the ledge of the altar so that it is halfway up the altar. Make poles of acacia wood for poles, make poles of acacia wood for the altar and overlay them with bronze. The poles are to be inserted into the rings, so they will be on 2 sides of the altar when it is carried. Make the altar hollow out of boards. It is to be made just as you were shown on the mountain. Make a courtyard for the tabernacle. The south side shall be 100 cubits long, and is to have curtains of finely twisted linen with 20 posts and 20 bronze bases, and with silver hooks and bands on the posts. The north side shall also be 100 cubits long, and is to have curtains with 20 posts and 20 bronze bases, and with silver hooks and bands on the posts. The west end of the courtyard shall be 50 cubits wide, and have curtains with 10 posts and 10 bases. On the east end, toward the sunrise, the courtyard shall also be 50 cubits wide. Curtains 50 cubits long are to be on one side of the entrance, with 3 posts and 3 bases. And curtains 15 cubits long are to be on the other side, with 3 posts and 3 bases. For the entrance to the courtyard, provide a curtain 20 cubits long of blue, purple, and scarlet yarn, and finely twisted linen, the work of an embroider, with 4 posts and 4 bases. All the posts around the courtyard are to have silver bands and hooks and bronze bases. The courtyard shall be 100 cubits long and 50 cubits wide, with curtains of finely twisted linen, 5 cubits high, and with bronze bases. All the other articles used in the service of the tabernacle, whatever their function, including all the tent pegs for it, and those for the courtyard, are to be of bronze. Okay, now oil for the lampstand. Command the children of Israel to bring you clear oil of pressed olives for the light, so that the lamps may be kept burning. In the tabernacle outside the curtain that is in front of the testimony, Aaron and his sons are to keep the lamps burning before Yahuwah from evening till morning. This is to be a lasting ordinance among the children of Israel for the generations to come.
Yeah, pretty short chapter.
Yeah,
Kind of like finishing what we read in the last chapter with the tabernacles. So
yeah.
trying to see if anything like really screams out to me here. Just kind of skimming through here. So you have the pillars, the sockets, the curtains. Okay.
Just the ongoing.
The veil again being mentioned. The veil. Now this would be a veil for, I guess, the front door of the tabernacle that's talking about here in verse 16. The veil for the door of the court. Oh no, this would actually be in the courtyard, the inner courtyard. Okay, the veil for the door of the court, the height. Okay, so again, you got blue, purple, scarlet. So blue, purple, and red. Their pillars are 4. So again, he's talking about pillars here for the veil of the courtyard. Sockets 4. Interesting that they're overlaid with silver, the pillars. It's interesting. Okay. All the furniture and the instruments and the pins of the court of brass. Now, what I found interesting was my mom's translation she was reading from said clear oil.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting the way that NIV paraphrases there. Yeah, I mean, I would assume if the olive oil is clean, it's going to be clear. But I just thought that was interesting. So the olive oil for the lampstand, and it says to burn continually. That's an interesting thing there. So basically, what Yahuwah's kind of foreshadowing here is a command that he's going to give to the Levites about they are to continually, morning and evening, burn the lampstand in the temple. Eventually that happened. And even in the tabernacle, it was originated in the tabernacle. So the Levites themselves had to light the menorahs. You could not have a regular Israelite lighting it. So just that's something to mention that doesn't really get verbatimly mentioned in this chapter, but you'll see later on where Yahuwah commands the Levites about the lampstand. So verse, let's see just here. So again, it talks about outside of the veil, you have the tabernacle with, so in the tabernacle witness, outside the veil, before the Ark of the Covenant, shall Aaron and his sons burn it. Oh, it actually does. I'll take correction here. It actually does say it in the very last verse. Aaron and his sons burn it from evening till morning before you, who has a perpetual ordinance throughout your generations of the children of Yashrael. This is a perfect example of what we cannot do today. Why? Because there's no Levitical priesthood. So none of us should be lighting a menorah, in my opinion. I understand we're doing it in our own homes. I get it. But at the end of the day, he gives a specific command to Aaron and his sons to light a menorah. I'm not going to play a risky game of, well, technically there's a gray area. Now, if he's giving them the job to light a menorah, I don't care that it's a copy of a menorah that people have in their homes. I ain't doing it. That's fine. If you're comfortable with taking that risk, I ain't going to do it. I'm telling you right now. So I understand the whole Jewish tradition, but again, their religion is filled with a lot of tradition. So again, I don't see anywhere in scripture that's Yahuwah is allowing us to use a copy of menorah in our own homes and lighting it ourselves without being Levites. So that's just my opinion on it. Go ahead, Brother Masha.
So how people light the menorah every Shabbat, we're not supposed to do that?
Well, it's never commanded to do that. And that's a Jewish tradition. That's from Judaism. When Pharisaical Judaism started, they would start adding things that like traditions they would do. And I'm not saying it's evil of itself, but the problem is if this is the only place in scripture we can find people lighting menorahs and Yahuwah is giving that duty to the Levites, we don't have the right to be doing that, in my opinion. I don't see anywhere where Yahuwah is, saying to the Israelites, "Oh, you as well can light a menorah." I don't see whoever saying that it's okay to do that, that we can have our own copy, like a little miniature menorah in our homes to light. I don't see whoever giving that allowance. So I'd rather be on the safe side and not do it, because there are certain things Yahuwah only gives the Levites to do. And see, Judaism doesn't really care about that, because in their mind, they think their whole tribe is probably Levites. In their own tradition, like I've talked to some Ashkenazis in the past. They pretty much think like all of them could be of Levitical lineage, because they had this weird tradition. They think like Levi and Judah became one, and I see it all the time. Like even in Israel today, all these Jewish guys think they're Levites, without any proof that they have Levitical blood. So that's another issue too, is that they have this oral tradition of their genealogy and all that. So they probably don't even think it's a big deal. But to me, it's a big deal when Yahuwah has given it to one genealogy to light the menorah. That's a big deal. So I'm not going to do it. That's fine if people think it's okay. This is kind of a gray area here, but I'm not going to do it. The house that I'm a part of, we're not going to be doing it. I don't want to take that risk, just because I want to do a tradition that really is not necessary anyway. And then find out on Judgment Day, Yahuwah never gave it to us to do. So I would rather play it safe. That's just the way we all got to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. To me, this clearly is specifically only for Aaron and his descendants.
Mhm.
That's what we're doing.
How about the whole breaking bread every Shabbat and doing the wine?
Yeah, that's fine. That's something I personally, breaking bread and the wine, though, I will say this. If people are doing it because Yahusha did it at the Passover, what we have to realize too is that communion was not of itself what he was instituting. What he was saying was, every time you think of what I'm doing for you, every time you think about the night that I died for you, essentially Passover, do this. I'm not saying it's wrong to do it of itself, but if people are just doing that on the Sabbath to try to do communion on the Sabbath, the point of what later was perverted into communion was the Passover meal. That's what it was. It was an institution of the bread with the wine on Passover. And what's interesting to me is even the earlier sages understood this. They actually expound on the Exodus 12 story that they were drinking wine with the bread. So that even with the rabbinical sages who wrote the Targums understood that. So there's part of the problem is we don't understand Hebraic culture, and we think that this bread and the wine thing was just like a thing to do every Sunday. Like in Christianity, they do it every first Sunday or do it every Sabbath. It wasn't supposed to be that common. It was supposed to be like a once in a year type of thing. It was not supposed to be like every Sabbath we're going to do the breaking of the body, and when Yahusha says if you don't partake of, allegorically obviously saying, if you don't eat my body and drink my blood, you have no part of me. That concept was specifically for that meal he was having with the disciples, and he wasn't just talking about the bread and the wine. He's like, do this in remembrance of me, meaning this whole thing, the whole meal, the Passover. So what happens is, because we're raised with a Greco-Roman mindset, we extrapolate something from that Passover meal of itself and then try to make a tradition out of the bread and the wine, when the bread and the wine was connected to Passover. And it always was. So according to even Judean tradition, they would admit that the bread and the wine is like part of the Passover tradition. Even in their own Targums, it's mentioned. So that's the reason I don't personally do it for every Sabbath. I think it could get danger into becoming too commonplace where it loses its meaning if you do that. Like if you're doing it for communion's sake, then yeah, that could be a bad thing to do. But if you're just doing it because you like to break bread and drink wine, I don't see a problem with that. But if the tradition of that of itself is going back to the communion, I think that could be dangerous because then you're making it commonplace. And Yahusha on purpose was trying to mention something that was in remembrance of his death. It wasn't supposed to be every Sabbath or every first day of the month. You know what I'm saying? So that's it's what I would say with that, Brother Ramasha, because that's an extreme gray area. I would say it would be, what is the purpose of someone doing that on Sabbath? What would be the purpose? Are they just wanting to drink wine and eat bread, or are they trying to do the communion every Sabbath evening? Because that I think could be a violation of Scripture. You're trying to do that institution that Yahusha instituted and making it commonplace to where it loses its meaning. That could be a violation of Scripture.
Oh, yeah.
So. But anyway, that's a long, a roundabout answer.
Yeah.
I had to give the whole roundabout answer there because that's a very gray area. That really depends on the intention with the bread and wine. It really does.
It definitely makes sense, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, bro. You're welcome. It's a tough one to answer because we have so much tradition about that, and we're not even paying attention to why he did it on that specific night. So there's a lot of, on the Christian and Jewish side, there's a lot of tradition about that event. So there's, so anyway, but hopefully that helps. And the other question too, hopefully I answered it best to my ability. So about the whole menorah thing. So anyway, but, all right, so we're at Exodus 28. Let's see. I think we should get a new reader here. Brother Yahusha, would you like to read Exodus 28?
Exodus 29. Gotcha. All right, so Exodus 28. And as for you, bring to yourself Aharon, your brother, and his sons, from the sons of Yasharal, to serve as priests for me, Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and Alazar and Ithamar, sons of Aharon. And you shall prepare set apart clothing for Aharon your brother, for honor and esteem. And as for you, speak to all those skilled in understanding, whom I have filled with the spirit of perception. And they shall make the set apart clothing for Aharon for set apartness, by which he will serve as Kahan to me, or priest to me. Now these are the garments that they shall make: a breast piece, and a shoulder piece, and a full length robe, and a fringed tunic, and a turban, and a sash. And they shall make set apart garments for Aharon and for his sons to serve as Kahanim, the priest, for me. And they themselves will receive the gold and the blue and the purple and the scarlet yarn and the fine linen. And they shall make the shoulder piece from twisted fine linen, a work of an embroidery weaver. They shall have two shoulder pieces joined one with the other, fastened at the two corners, and the band of the shoulder pieces that is on it shall match its fabrication from the same material, from gold and blue and purple and scarlet, spun yarn and fine twisted linen. And you shall take 2 stones, emerald stones, and engrave the names of the sons of Yasharal upon them, 6 names upon one stone, and the 6 remaining names upon the second stone, according to their generations, the work of a skilled stone carver, an engraving on a seal. You shall engrave the 2 stones upon the shoulders of the shoulder piece. They are memorial stones for the sons of Yasharal. And Aharon will bear the names of the sons of Yasharal into the presence of Yahuwah upon his 2 shoulders as a memorial concerning them. And you shall prepare filigrees of pure gold, and you shall prepare 2 fringes of pure gold, variegated by flowers, of braided work. And you shall place these braided fringes upon the filigrees along their shoulder straps in front. And you shall make an oracle of judgments, the work of an embroiderer. You will construct it according to the design and style of the shoulder piece out of gold, blue, purple, and scarlet twisted yarn and fine twisted linen. You shall make it square. It will be double the length of a span and a span in width. And you shall weave into it woven cloth featuring precious stones in 4 rows. A row of stones will be sardius, topaz, emerald, the first row. In the second row, carbuncle, sapphire, and jasper. In the third row, ligure, agate, amethyst. In the fourth row, topaz, beryl, and onyx. Have them mounted in gold and placed together in gold according to their row. And make the stones be with the names of the 12 sons of Yashral according to their names, engraving on seals, each one according to its name. Let them be for the 12 tribes, and you shall make woven fringes for the oracle, a chain work of pure gold. Now Harun shall take the names of the sons of Yashral on the oracle of judgment upon his chest when entering the set apart place as a memorial before Yahuwah, and you shall place it upon the oracle of judgment. You shall place the cord-like fringes at the 2 sides of the oracle. And you shall arrange the 2 filigrees on both shoulders and the shoulder piece at the front. And you shall place the unveiling and the truth into the oracle of judgment, and it will be on Aharun's chest whenever he goes into the set apart place, into the presence of Yahuwah. And Aharun will carry the judgments for the sons of Yashral over his breast in the presence of Yahuwah always. And you shall prepare an undergarment full length, entirely of blue, and the opening will be cut out of it in the middle, having a border around the opening like a weaver's work. Connection interwoven of the same material so it will not tear. And you shall prepare that under the hem of the undergarment below something like blooming pomegranates, little pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet spun yarn and twisted fine linen. At the edges around the undergarment, the same image, golden pomegranates and bells between these all around, the side of pomegranate, a golden bell, and a flower around on the hem of the undergarment. And when Aharun ministers, its sound will be audible when he enters into the set apart place before Yahuwah and when he goes out, in case he dies. And you should prepare a thin plate of pure gold and work a seal relief into it, set apartness unto Yahuwah. And you shall secure it with blue twisted yarn, and it shall be on the turban. It shall be toward the front of the turban. And it will be upon the forehead of Aharun, and Aharun will carry away the sin of the set apart things that the sons of Yashral set aside for any gift of their set apart things. And it shall be on the forehead of Aharun at all times, acceptable for them in the presence of Yahuwah. And the tassels of the tunic of fine linen, and you shall make a linen turban, and you shall make a sash, embroiderer's work, and you shall prepare tunics and sashes for the sons of Aharun, and you shall prepare turbans for them for honor and esteem. And you shall clothe Aharun your brother and his sons with him, and you shall anoint them, and you shall fill their hands, and you shall set them apart in order that they may serve me as Kahanim, and you shall make linen undergarments for them to conceal the shame of their skin. They will reach from the hips to the thighs. And Aharun and his sons will have these things whenever they enter into the tent of the testimony, whenever they go to minister at the set apart altar, and they will not bring guilt on themselves in order that they will not die, an internal ordinance for him and for his seed after him. Interesting that you have the 2 stones with the names, 6 on each, and that's on his shoulders. But then you also have the 6 the 12 different stones, each with one name on it on his chest. Like two different types of I don't know what I see in that, but I just think that's interesting. Like it could have just been one or the other rather than both.
Carrying the 12 tribes on him, on his shoulders.
Yeah, what's interesting is I remember someone doing a study years ago about comparing these stones to the stones that were originally on Gabriel's chest, and there are certain similarities. So I find that interesting that Yahuwah might have appointed Gabriel for a specific purpose in the temple in heaven, and he screwed up, got cocky. But I find it interesting. Some of the stones seem to be paralleled in Ezekiel 28. I
think he's missing one of them, isn't he?
Yeah, he's missing one. I think the main one he's missing, is the one that's on Yahusha, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that's probably one of the reasons he envied him so much.
Wait, you said he's missing the one? Which one?
Like the claim is that the main one Gabriel's missing on his chest would be the one that would finish all the stones that would be on the high priest's breastplate, like that Yahusha would have. And supposedly the theory is that that's one of the reasons he's envious of him. Is that he wanted the office that Yahusha had. He wanted to be, he wanted to be the main head honcho in heaven. Let me just see here. I want to see.
He hates you so much.
So he has the topaz in Ezekiel 28, verse 13. He's got the immense chrysolite, beryl, onyx, emerald, carbuncle, sapphire, and that's pretty much it. So how many stones is that? That's 1, 2. Sardius, topaz, that's 2. Emeralds 3. Carbuncles 4. Sapphires 5. Jasper 6. And then you have the Ligor
Which
7.
chapter is this one more time? Sorry.
Ezekiel 28, verse 13. And I'm reading from the Brentons here. It's mentioning the Ligor, the chrysolite, beryl, onyx, immense, Ligor, jasper, sapphire, carbuncle, emerald, topaz, sardius. So how many stones is that? What is that, 8 or 9?
I don't think you would count the silver and gold though.
Yeah.
No.
So he's actually missing 3 of them, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
He's
got
actually
9
short
stones.
by 3 of them. And I don't know, that could have been a way of foreshadowing that he would be wanting. How sometimes in the scripture we see spiritually that people that are not complete are wanting. And Satan, seems like that he was wanting. He was not fully complete in his pureness.
Nope.
It seems like he's got 12 though.
Oh, okay.
If you take away the golden stone, but some of these are different though than what you read in what we just read. Like, okay, so you've got carnelian, topaz, emerald. That's 3. Garnet, sapphire, jasper. That's 6. Liguria, agate, amethyst. That's 9. And then topaz, beryl, and onyx. That's 12.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, he must have had a high position, even though he wasn't a cherub. He must have had a high position. He must have been a very top-ranked seraphim to have those stones on his chest. He must have been very high-ranking.
Which makes the whole thing ironic.
Yeah, because he was given all that esteem and splendor and beauty.
And it wasn't enough for him.
Wasn't enough. He didn't want to be a priest or anything. He wanted to be the ones the priests were serving.
Exactly.
He was prideful. But yeah, that's the story of his fall. That's the whole story there. He was
Yep.
corrupted by his beauty, and then talks about he's wounded from the Mount of Elohim. So I believe that would be talking about heavenly Zion there, where he's thrown down from.
I wonder if he was actually given these, if Yahuwah actually gave these to him, because it says you have bound on every precious stone, and then you have filled your treasure houses and your storehouses among you with gold.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Yeah, you know what's kind of interesting then? Not to get too much into secularism, but the story of Thanos. And interesting. Thanatos in the Greek means the last enemy to be destroyed is Thanatos in the Greek. Interesting. Kind of wonder if Stan Lee was putting that in there on purpose. But it's kind of interesting, yeah, because Thanos in the Marvel movies is like a demiurge type of creator that looks at destruction as order and, you know, chaos as order and all that. So that's interesting. That just brought that up to me. If he is taking stones for himself and stealing, that would be a pretty decent parallel with that Marvel character.
Oh yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah. And there's a huge difference, guys. Like, I know you might be reading from your Masoretic text, be like, what the heck are they talking about? The Masoretic text like screws up verse 13 and on. It screws everything up. It tells you he's a cherub. It screws everything up in Ezekiel 28, verse 14 especially. So instead of it saying you were created with the cherub, it would say you are the cherub that covers. So it completely changes the narrative. So anyway, but if you guys are more interested in that, we did a study way back. I'll give you guys the link in the description. Was Satan really a cherub? And there's multiple scriptures you can go to, even the Masoretic, that would contradict their rendering of Ezekiel 28:14. Like they contradict themselves. So anyway, but yeah, it's very interesting. I thought it was an interesting parallel with the types of stones that he had. So it's very interesting. Let's see here. And this is the purpose, which I find even more interesting, is it's a memorial of the sons of Yasharel. It seems like this is where birthstones came from. I started looking into this because certain translations will actually, like right here, I think one verse talks about these stones are for the births of the son. Yeah, here we go, verse 10. 6 names on the first stone and other 6 names on the second stone according to their births. So what the world calls birthstones really originated in the Torah. Unfortunately, the world perverts it and makes it into divination and this and that. And, you know, if you look up those secular birthstones, they're all into like astrology. They're used for astrology and all that. So they've taken something that originally was of Yahuwah, which was birthstones, and has perverted it into astrological purposes, sorcery purposes, unfortunately. So yeah, it's a shame. But yeah, that's why I personally don't get birthstones. I don't wear birthstones. Unfortunately, nowadays, those that would be making birthstones most likely are cursing them, putting spells on them. I ain't gonna mess with that. So you know, but Yahuwah gave these birthstones originally to represent the actual dates of their births, is like really what the original purpose
But your
was.
birthstone happens to be one of the ones that
Emerald?
emerald. It is on the ephod, so it's one of his. Now mine, I'm not so sure.
It explains why I like the Northern Lights so much. That kind of explains it a little bit.
Yeah.
That you know, I always like the colors that Yahuwah has in heaven, red and green.
Me too.
So that kind of explains why I like emerald so much. That's interesting.
And I love sapphire.
But yeah, that explains why and even growing up, green was always my favorite color. So that kind of explains it a little bit.
It's true.
Kind of explains it a little bit. But anyway, I don't wear birthstones because the heathen that make them today would put spells on them and do all weird stuff. I don't trust it. I don't trust to be wearing a birthstone. And really, we see only birthstones being used to put on their breastplate. Again, I'm wondering if this is specifically for the priesthood. I don't think Yahuwah is giving allowance for us in general to wear birthstones. These birthstones were for the shoulder pieces. And it says they were engraved in gold. So you had like a seal of gold around the stones to put on the priest's garments. So really, it's this is not even for like what would you call it? It's not for decoration. It's not for us to be wearing in general. It was for the priest's garments. But anyway, work of the stones engravers art is two stones. Children, not sure. Oh, okay. Trying to see if there's anything else here. Make the circlets of pure gold. Oh yeah, and then you have fringes being mentioned here, interestingly enough.
yeah.
And the difference with the priest fringes, they're of pure gold. They're not of like a cord of blue. They're of pure gold. So that's kind of interesting. Variegated with flowers, wreathen work. You shall put the wreathen fringes on the circlets, fastening them on their row, shoulder pieces in front. Then it talks about the breastplate here, the work of the embroidery, keeping with the ephod, the blue, purple, and spun scarlet. Okay, and then it talks about its dimensions there. And then obviously you have the different stones here. You have the row, sardius, topaz, emerald. It's interesting that 3 stones are for each row. That's what I find interesting too. It's like 3, 6, 9, 12. So that's kind of interesting to me. Jasper, sapphire, carbuncle, 3rd row ligure, and agate and mess. And the 4th row chrysolite and a beryl and onyx stones set round with gold, bound together, gold. Let them be according to their row, and let the stones of the names of the children of Yasharel be 12 according to their names. Engravings as of seals, let them be for the 12 tribes, each according to their name. Interesting. So each color, each stone and the color of the stone, was for each tribe. So that's
Yes,
very interesting.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
Why do you think he's burying them in 2 different ways? Like on his shoulders for the 2 stones with the 6 names, and then but he's also burying them on his chest with these.
Oh,
Interesting.
oh, what? See here. So the shoulder piece, right, is what the Masoretic text says. 2 onyx stones is on the shoulder, right? Well, Yahusha is going to have the government on his shoulders, right?
Yeah, I thought of that too. Yeah.
So that could be a parallel to Yahusha, that the government, the right ruling, the judgment is on his shoulders. Onyx might somehow, that color might somehow refer to onyx, refer to judgment somehow. And then the rest of the stones is kind of like his breastplate is kind of like that's what does it say in Ephesians 6, Mom, about the breastplate?
Righteousness.
The righteousness. So the law, maybe the fact that all 12 stones are on the breastplate could be that the law, the Torah is going to be in all 12 tribes. I'm just trying to think spiritually what it could mean. But that's the best explanation I know of.
I don't know. There's definitely something there though. Like, I mean, you could have just had it on one place or the other, but I don't know. Definitely something there though. I
Yeah,
think.
it definitely is. Put reefs on both sides. Oracle judgment. Yeah, it's interesting that it says the Oracle of Judgment for the LXX. That's interesting. What is the Oracle translated as in what part of the garment is the Oracle for your version, Mom? What would it say in verse?
In Ephesians or?
No, in Exodus 20:30. What would it say? Breastplate. Okay, so I'm off on that one. Okay, so the breastplate represents judgment. Okay.
Ooh.
Uh-huh.
Why are they translating it as oracle? That's strange.
Greek, yeah, the Greek is weird like that. I don't know why they do that. They seem to only do that in the Septuagint. I don't know why they translate it as oracle. It should, and I think newer versions have corrected that mistake, if I'm not mistaken. I think they've corrected that in
I wonder if that word meant breastplate in Britain's time.
My version says he will bear the names of the sons of Yashrael over his heart
yeah.
on the breastplate of decision as a continuing memorial before Yahuwah. But it involves the heart.
Let me see here, because my sword version is. Let me see here. I'm going to see. Yeah, what is oracle referring to there? I know oracle in Greek mythology would refer to their version of a prophetess or their version of like given a word. Usually oracle's like another word for word. Yeah. Yeah, divine oracle. That's what it says in the Greek, logion, not legion, logion, like logos. Brief utterance, divine oracle. Oracles were generally brief. In the New Testament, the words are the utterances of Yahuwah, of the contents of the Mosaic Law. So, yeah, so that's where the Greek language gets a little weird, because that word that they can use for general speech also in their religion was like the names of their, diviners and all that. So it gets a little weird. Like
What was the manifestation and the truth? What was the Urim and Thummim?
I think the Urim and Thummim might have been manifestation of the truth, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the same word there in the Hebrew. Let me see here. Yeah, it is, because you got H224 and then you got the H8550. So yeah. So for some reason the Septuagint paraphrased Urim and Thummim as manifestation and truth. I'm guessing that's what the meaning of those words mean. Yeah, because Urim means lights or light, and Thummim.
I see why they're translating it as oracle of judgment. Strong's is pointing to Urim as, so the Urim and Thummim, it's saying stones kept in a pouch on the high priest's breastplate, used in determining Yahuwah's decision in certain questions and issues. So probably when they would cast lots, they would use the Urim and Thummim. So that would make sense why it's saying oracle of judgment rather than breastplate.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah. Oracle is just a weird word that we're not used to, because we obviously we're not Greeks, so that's a very isolated Greek term that you really only see in their language. So, but you're gonna see certain words like that are used as a general word that in their religion, represents, some stupid character and all that. But I don't really let it trip me up that, because I know what oracles are in Greek mythology and all that. But they're a lot of the times the Septuagint translators didn't worry about that either. They would translate into Greek knowing that Greek mythology would have certain words as certain things. They really didn't care too much. They were trying to translate the scriptures for a Greek audience. So, there's probably a reason too why they didn't feel the need to have to correct every word in the Greek language. But let's see here. So the full length tunic of all blue. So it talks about the fringes of the weaver woven together, joins the same. Under the fringe of the robe below, you shall make it as it were pomegranates. So that's interesting too. You got pomegranates on the fringe,
Yeah.
which again, most people would assume that somehow pomegranates are representing Yahusha. I know that the pomegranates, they would have just ate pomegranates in general a lot.
They were in Solomon's temple too.
They were in Solomon's temple?
Yes, as part of the decoration,
Interesting.
the embroidery and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, he had pomegranates in his temple.
Oh, go ahead, Brother Yahusha. I see you got your, blue. Oh, okay.
So I don't know. I don't know exactly. I'm just paraphrasing what I vaguely remember looking into of pomegranates, but they compared to like any other fruit, like pomegranates have like tons and tons and tons and tons of seeds
Yes,
in them.
that's
So
what you suck on.
fruitfulness,
Mhm. Yeah.
possibility of what that,
Interesting.
Abraham,
Interesting, yes.
his seed being as the stars of heaven
Mm,
through Yahusha.
Man, there's so much you get looked into this stuff.
yeah, and the word pomegranate is kind of interesting too. I forget. There's that one cooking girl that I usually watch. She was explaining
Oh.
where the origin of the word pomegranate
I'm
comes
gonna
from.
look that up.
It's like something to do with the apple. It like part of the word somehow goes back to apple. I forget exactly, but she was like talking about this Emmy maid girl that I watched sometime on YouTube. She was
Mhm.
talking about the history of the word pomegranate. I would have to go back to that
I'm gonna
video
look
to
all
see
that
what she
up
says,
later on.
but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I bet we find out a lot of interesting things about it.
What I find interesting too is you got bells that are also around them here
Yeah.
on the road, so that's kind of interesting. Probably why the Catholic Church, they're probably copying this.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Copying a lot of this
Oh,
stuff.
my goodness, yes. And the garments that they wear, yes, definitely.
Yeah, which again is not right because this is only supposed to be for the Levites, so no other priesthood is supposed to be wearing this stuff.
One thing I find interesting, though, just a little tidbit, they use green a lot during
The
the
priests,
year. Yes,
the Catholic
because
priests,
green
yeah.
is known as their color of ordinary time, meaning like not a high holiday, not a holy day, their normal ordinary time.
Yeah.
It's green. Now I'm wondering, I almost feel like I want to look into that and find out what is green something big in the pagan world? Is it what, because we don't see green really anywhere.
Well, Satan, we just read like in Ezekiel 28, right? Satan wanted to steal these stones. Who's to say that Satan is not inspiring that religion
Yeah,
to take the emerald color, to take this color and that color
yeah, interesting.
that
though.
belongs to Yahuwah? For example, in their religion, right? What's the colors of Christmas?
Yeah, red and green. Yeah.
What's the color of Yahuwah's throne?
That's no, he's a thief. Absolutely.
Just saying, who is inspiring them to have those colors of Christmas?
He tried to take the rainbow,
So-
but didn't quite make it with that.
Well, this is way before the rainbow.
Oh, I know.
This
I
is
know,
this
I know.
is way
I
before
know.
the gay rainbow. The red and the green being colors of Saturnalia goes way back.
Way back.
So,
Yes, I understand.
but Satan, he said he wanted to be like Yahuwah. Well, what's one way to be like Yahuwah? To imitate the colors of his throne.
Yeah.
To want to covet his throne. And so, anyone listening, that's what the Northern Lights are. If you've been in Alaska or Antarctica, you see these like shades of red and green in the sky in the north. That's really it's like a radiation or a like basically Yahuwah's throne shining down from heaven to the earth. And you can find that in Revelations 4, verse 3. That's what the Aurorus Borealis actually is. But
Not
anyway.
only there though.
Yeah, it's like all around the world. Like most people though, like think of it from like Alaska and Antarctica
Okay.
because like that's the most common, like where people see it. But I'm pretty sure it's all over the world. For some reason though, that area, it's seen a lot there throughout the year. There's something about that area.
Alaska?
Oh no, about Antarctica.
Oh,
You
Antarctica,
see it like
yeah.
constantly throughout the year. There's something about that area. I wonder if that part of the Eretz is like, it's probably right under, where his throne is in the third heaven. It must be like geographically, it might be very close to like being like, how Isaiah 14 talks about the sides of the north, and there must be something about that. That's why I don't throw away the idea of the North Pole. I know a lot of people, when they accept flat Earth, they say there's no North Pole. I still think there's something that we need to look more into about that. Because I see certain areas of the Eretz where that occurs a lot more frequently than other areas of the Eretz.
So you think the Northern Lights could be a manifestation of a reflection of the throne? Is that
Yeah,
what you think?
yeah. I'm going to show you the scripture I'm talking about here, where it gives you the exact stones of the colors of this throne. And if you look it up for yourself, it's literally shades of green and red.
Interesting, man. That's very interesting.
See here, Revelations 4, verse 3. And he who sat on the throne as the likeness and appearance of jasper, red quartzstone, and of red and white sardius, and the rainbow of the clouds, which encircled the throne, was like the appearance of an emerald. So you also have whites, according to the Aramaic. You have white in there. You have red. You have green, which we see in the Northern Lights. Those are all the colors you see in the Northern Lights.
That's very interesting.
So yeah. And it's funny because the heathen, they pay attention to all these things.
Yeah.
And it's like how Paul says in Romans 1, they're without excuse. They see the Northern Lights all the time throughout the world. And they see all of his creation. They're without excuse.
Interesting. The world has made that one of the wonders.
Yeah.
One of the
it's one of the greatest
7 wonders of the world. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And I remember watching the movie Journey to the Center of the Earth with Brendan Fraser. When they saw the Aurora Borealis in the sky, and it almost looked like there was a firmament there. And I think he called it a terrarium, funny enough. Brendan Fraser actually called it, or no, I think it might have been the kid that did that. Whoever played the little boy that was his nephew in the movie said, it looks like a terrarium. And it's kind of funny because that's what we in this movement, call the firmament, the terrarium, Yahuwah's terrarium, or Yahuwah's flat earth. So it's kind of interesting. So let's see here. And again, this is another important part of the chapter. It talks about that the bells must be heard. They must be audible to be heard when they're approaching this set apart place. If not, Aaron and his sons would die. So there's got to be something about Yahuwah's presence and the sound of the bells. I personally believe the heathen corrupted bells, because you see in the occult, they use bells for weird purposes, like, the fact that Baal is also spelled as Bel. They definitely stole that from Yahuwah, in my opinion. The logo of bells everywhere and all that was definitely stolen for an evil purpose. Then it talks about, obviously, the mitre, which mitre would be turban. The correct word is turban. I don't like the word mitre because it gives a false understanding of what they're making for the priest's garments. It's a turban that has a golden plate in the middle of the turban. And you shall make a plate of gold. You shall grave on it, graving of the signet set apartness of Yahuwah. What's interesting is just a little wording difference. You have set apartness for before Yahuwah versus the set apartness of Yahuwah. I find that interesting, his kadoshness versus kadoshness before him, trying to present your own kadoshness before him versus his kadoshness, his set apartness. I just find that interesting. And you shall put on splendid clothing, blue cloth, and it shall be in the front of the mitre. Okay, and it shall be on the forehead of Aaron. I think that's about it for that chapter there. Oh, go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
I'm not understanding the sin of their set apart things.
Sin of the set apart things or concerning the set apart things would be like, if they messed up in any of the commandments of the priesthood, like you'll see in Leviticus 10, where Moshe is like testing Aaron, and he's saying, "Why didn't you eat of the sin sacrifice? What are you doing?" There was no blood brought, inside the set apart place. You could have ate it. You were commanded to eat it. And then he's like, after all these things befall me, referring to Nadab and Abihu, you really think Yahuwah would have been pleased for me to eat the sin offering? And then Moshe was pleased by hearing that. So, I would say the sinning of the set apart things would be like anything within the priesthood or the ordinances of the tabernacle. They mess up and they don't do exactly accordingly. That would be sinning in the set apart things. For example, if they let anyone make a compound of that incense that's not supposed to be copied, right? If they let anyone copy that, that would be a sin of the set apart things. So there's like many things that if you don't do exactly as Yahuwah told you, he considers that sin. Like it has to be exactly to the T. And so that's how I would interpret that sin of the set apart things, like concerning Yahuwah's set apart things and all that. Trying to think here. Anoint them. So it's talking about the anointing of the olive oil. Minister to me in the priest's office. Again, multiple times Yahuwah is saying that they may minister to me in the priest's office. So when we get into like Hosea 4:6, and a lot of people like to use this, we like to use this in like an ecumenical understanding. My people have no knowledge. But when Yahuwah says that they may not serve me as priests, he's not talking about all Israel. He's talking about the Levites in that context. The Levites at the point of chronologically at the time of Hosea, the Levites were sinning themselves. And Yahuwah is basically saying, you've forgotten my law. You were my lawgivers. You've forgotten my law, and I'm going to forget you and your children. You're not going to minister to me as priests. We see that phrase, minister to me as priests, is solely for the Levites. It's not for anyone else. So we have to take that understanding from the Tanakh into the prophets to understand what Hosea 4 is actually talking about. So Hosea 4 is most likely talking about Aaron's descendants being rebellious and not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They would even at one point, correct me if I'm mistaken, Mom, but the Levites at one point would even sacrifice the Baal and all that. They would start sacrifice to the images that Jeroboam made and all that. So again, Hosea 4:6 has to be talking about that context, because Yahuwah did not choose all of Israel to be priests to him. So when Hosea 4:6 says, you may not minister me as priest, he's talking about a specific tribe. He's not talking about, every tribe of Israel when he says that. So I just wanted to explain that, because that reminded me every time I'm seeing this in this chapter here, minister to me as priests, like it's mentioned like multiple times in this chapter. So anyway, just wanted to mention that. And that's pretty much about it. That's all I can think of to bring out here. And I think we're going to be at Exodus 29 now. And let's see, who hasn't read yet? I know we got a couple new people have joined. Brother Dennis, actually, could you read Exodus 29 for us? I think Brother Dennis is here. Yeah.
Yeah, I was muted.
Okay. That's weird, because I never muted you. That's a little weird. Okay.
What's that? I can't hear you. I think you're still muted.
Might be mutated.
Oh, man. I hope not.
Yeah. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect, brother. Perfect.
All right. And this is the task you shall do to them to set them apart to serve me as priests. Take one young bull and 2 rams, perfect ones, and unleavened bread, and unleavened cakes mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers anointed with oil. Make these of wheat flour. And you shall put them in one basket and bring them in the basket along with the bull and the 2 rams. Then you shall bring Aaron and his sons to the door of the tent of meeting and wash them with water. And you shall take the garments and shall put on Aaron the long shirt and the robe of the shoulder garment and the shoulder garment and the breastplate, and shall gird him with the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, and shall put the turban on his head, and shall put the set apart sign of dedication on the turban. And shall take the anointing oil and pour it on his head and anoint him. Then you shall bring his sons and put long shirts on them, and shall gird them with girdles, Aaron and his sons, and put the turbans on them, and the priesthood shall be theirs for an everlasting law. So you shall ordain Aaron and his sons. And you shall bring near the bull before the tent of meeting, and Aaron and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the bull. And you shall slaughter the bull before Yahuwah by the door of the tent of meeting, and take some of the blood of the bull and put it on the horns of the altar with your finger, and pour all the blood beside the base of the altar. And you shall take all the fat that covers the entrails, and the appendage on the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them, and burn them on the altar. But the flesh of the bull, and its skin, and its dung, you shall burn with fire outside the camp. It is a sin offering. And take 1 ram, and Aaron and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the ram, and you shall slaughter the ram, and you shall take its blood and sprinkle it all around on the altar, and cut the ram in pieces, and wash its entrails and its legs, and place them upon its pieces on its head. And you shall burn the entire ram on the altar. It is a burnt offering to Yahweh. It is a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahweh. And you shall take the second ram, and Aaron and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the ram, and you shall slaughter the ram, and take some of its blood and put it on the tip of the right ear of Aaron, and on the tip of the right ear of his sons, on the thumb of their right hand, and on the big toe of their right foot, and sprinkle the blood all around the altar. And you shall take some of the blood that is on the altar, and some of the anointing oil, and sprinkle it on Aaron and on his garments, on his sons, and on the garments of his sons with him. And he and his garments shall be set apart, and his sons and the garments of his sons with him. And you shall take the fat of the ram, and the fat tail, and the fat that covers the entrails, and the appendage on the liver, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat on them, and the right thigh. It is for a ram of ordination. 1 loaf of bread, and 1 cake made with oil, and 1 thin cake from the basket of the unleavened bread that is before Yahuwah. And you shall put all these in the hands of Aaron and in the hands of his sons, and you shall wave them, a wave offering before Yahuwah. Then you shall take them from their hands and burn them on the altar as a burnt offering, as a sweet fragrance before Yahuwah. It is an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. And you shall take the breast of the ram of Aaron's ordination and wave it, a wave offering before Yahweh, and it shall be your portion. And from the ram of ordination you shall set apart the breast of the wave offering which is waved, and the thigh of the contribution which is raised, of that which is for Aaron, and of that which is for his sons. And it shall be from the children of Yisrael, for Aaron and his sons, by a law forever, for it is a contribution. And it is a contribution from the children of Yisrael, from their peace offerings, their contribution to Yahweh. And the set apart garments of Aaron are for his sons after him, to be anointed in them and to be ordained in them. Priest from his sons in his place puts them on for 7 days, when he enters the tent of meeting to attend in a set apart place. And take the ram of ordination and cook its flesh in a set apart place. And Aaron and his sons shall eat the flesh of the ram and the bread that is in the basket by the door of the tent of meeting. And they shall eat those offerings with which the atonement was made, to ordain them, to set them apart. But let a stranger not eat them, because they are not there, because they are set apart. And if any of the flesh of the ordination offerings or of the bread be left over until the morning, then you shall burn up what is left over. It is not eaten, because it is set apart. So you shall do to Aaron and his sons, according to all I have commanded you. 7 days you shall ordain them, and prepare a bull each day as a sin offering for atonement. You shall cleanse the altar when you make atonement for it, and you shall anoint it to set it apart. 7 days you shall make atonement for the altar and set it apart. And the altar shall be most set apart. Whatever touches the altar is to be set apart. And this is what you prepare on the altar: 2 lambs a year old, daily, continually. Prepare the one lamb in the morning, and the other lamb you prepare between the evenings. And 1/10 of an ephah of flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil, and 1/4 of a hin of wine as a drink offering with the one lamb. And prepare the other lamb between the evenings, and with it prepare the grain offering and the drink offering as in the morning, for a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahweh. A continual burnt offering for your generations at the door of the tent of meeting, before Yahweh, where I shall meet with you to speak with you. And there I shall meet with the children of Yisrael, and it shall be set apart by my esteem. And I shall set apart the tent of meeting and the altar, and Aaron and his sons I set apart to serve as priests to me. And I shall dwell in the midst of the children of Yisrael, and shall be their Elohim. And they shall know that I am Yahweh, their Elohim, who brought them up out of the land of Mitzrayim to dwell in their midst. I am Yahweh, their Elohim.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Brother Dennis. You did a great job.
Great job, yeah.
So, I was talking to a brother early in the week about the fat thing. I think we're going to do a study about that soon, just to try to have a defense a little bit better on this issue. And just because I do believe one of the ways we add to the Torah is when we start thinking we can't eat fat. So it's a big thing that I think we definitely need to debunk this whole idea that fat in general is what Yahuwah is telling you that you cannot eat. So I'm definitely going to, Yahuwah willing, I'm going to start getting a document ready about all these scriptures talking about the fat and lobe of the liver and how it says the fat belongs to Yahuwah in the context of the sacrifices and all that. So, but yeah. So this chapter talks a little bit about it here. One of the verses here that I caught was verse 22. Talks about the lobe of the liver, the fat. It's on kidneys and all that. So yeah.
There's an interesting difference. Verse 46 in the Lexham versus the Britons and the Complete Apostles Bible and all the other Septuagints. The Lexham is missing a part in 46. It's missing where it says the LXXE and the Britons, it says, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah their Elohah, who brought them forth out of the land of Mitzrayim to be called upon by them and to be their Elohah. But the Lexham just says, and they will recognize that I myself am Yahuwah. There's nothing about bringing them out from Mitzrayim.
That's interesting.
Huh.
Even the Masoretic says that.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they're using a manuscript that leaves it out. Because I know that I think the translator of the Lexham is borrowing from Sweet's LXX, which Sweet's LXX, from what I looked into, is based on the manuscript family of the Codex Alexandrinus, not the Vaticanus. So that could be an issue with that manuscript. Is probably what it is. It's omitted probably for whatever weird reason. But that's most likely why the Lexham doesn't have it there, why it might be the only one that doesn't have it there. The Complete Apostles Bible, for the most part, is sticking with the Codex Vaticanus from what I've looked into. Obviously, the Bretons uses it. Brenton is one of the first people that used that manuscript, actually, the Vaticanus version of the Septuagint. So, so most of them that use the Vaticanus are going to have verse 46 there, or that portion of 46. But I guess the Alexandrinus is that part is omitted somehow, or after a long period of time, certain older manuscripts do have things that have, what's the word I'm looking for, Mom? Like over time, if you hide a scroll somewhere and over time it like starts fading away, like you could have, you could, if the Codex Alexandrinus is as old as they claim it to be, that it's the closest we have to the original Septuagint, you could also have a problem of the fading, like not corruptness, but more or less like decaying or fading away.
Right, decaying, that's what I mean.
Like that could be an issue too. A lot of the older manuscripts are very fragmented too, so that's could be another issue. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm trying to see anything else. Obviously, the anointing oil filling their hands. The priest, his successor from among his sons. That's a key verse there. Who shall go into the tabernacle of witness to minister in the set apart place, shall put them on 7 days. So this is like the duration of ordination. So these are like offerings are given for ordaining the priests. And again, this is something Christianity has tried to take for themselves, that really they have no business ordaining priests. They're not of any priesthood Yahuwah appointed. So they have no business ordaining priests or anything. So this was specifically to the Levitical priesthood, ordaining priests and all that.
They're priests.
Yeah.
They're ordained under papacy anyway.
Yeah, by the papacy, not just the papacy. I think, if I'm not mistaken, when they go to Bible colleges and they go to seminaries, you get ordained that way too. They think they have the authority to ordain people.
I went to an ordination.
Like when you get to be an ordained pastor, right?
Right.
What do you have to go to? You go to seminary.
Yeah.
So seminary is part of that system. They get you a so-called doctorate that allows you to be, ordained or whatever.
Yeah.
But according to Yahuwah, it's not about how much you know. It's about what lineage you're part of. If you're not part of Aaron's lineage, you don't get ordained. So, that's, yeah. So, you know, but anyway, so that whole they take a lot of stuff that they want to take from the Bible and then make it their own. They take what they want,
Yeah.
like little bits and pieces,
Yeah, that's true.
and then they try to spin it and make it their own thing. Like there's a Christian priesthood somewhere. Book, chapter, verse on that one. So let's see. He be left to the flesh of the sacrifice, consecration, loaves until the morning. So this is like a peace offering here. This specific offering of consecration, setting apart the loaves until morning. You shall burn remainder with fire, similar to the Passover meal. You know, when whatever's left over the lamb in the morning, you burn with fire. That's why even though the Passover meal is not an offering, technically it's similar or foreshadows the peace offering technically, because there's similarities between the Passover lamb and the peace offerings. So see if there's anything else that struck out to me here. Calf and sin offering, day of purification. You shall purify the altar when you do perform set apartness upon it, and you shall anoint it so as to set it apart. 7 days shall you purify the altar, set apart, and the altar shall be most set apart. Everyone that touches the altar shall be set apart. And then we have the continual burnt offerings, unblemished lambs. And again, unblemished is referring to, you know, the actual no defects, no physical defects and all that. One lamb you shall offer in the morning, and the second lamb you shall offer in the evening. A tenth measure of fine flour, beat oil, okay. Fourth part of a hin of wine for one lamb. And you shall offer the second lamb in the evening and after the manner of the morning offering, according to the drink offering, the morning lamb. Again, this is another proof that people that want to say drinking alcohol is wrong and alcohol is sinful. Okay, so why would Yahuwah allow priests to offer a drink offering? That most likely they're, if I'm not mistaken, I doubt the drink offering would get wasted. You know, I would have to look more into that, but I'm pretty sure the priests would have some type of portion of that as well. So they were not allowed to drink when they did service in the priesthood, like when they're in the tabernacle, but there was no restriction for them not to drink the wine outside of the tabernacle when they're not serving. So, but anyway, that's one thing for me that I see very clear, that drinking alcohol itself is not prohibited, because it's even an offering in the priesthood. So let's see here. Give orders to the children of Yashrael, and I will be set apart in my esteem. Minister to me as priests again. I will set apart Aaron and his sons to minister to me as priests. And I will be called upon. Interesting. I love this verse. So he's talking about his name here. I will be called upon among the children of Yashrael and will be their Elohim. So this is talking about calling upon his name. Okay. And they shall know that I am Yahuwah their Elohim, who brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, to be called upon by them and to be their Elohim. So interesting. The Samaritan Pentateuch is missing that as well, unless it's in the next chapter. Huh. That's interesting. Let me check that real quick. Okay, yeah. So the verse numberings are off a little bit. So part of verse 46 and 29 is in Exodus 30, verse 1 for the Samaritan Pentateuch. Okay, I see what happened there. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
Going back to the wine, you have a verse that says, you know, let not wine be for, it talks about not princes shouldn't be drinking wine. And like, definitely it's not a sin to drink wine, but I think that I think this is in like Proverbs, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
but I would say that that's definitely wise. Um, in that sense, pointing towards like someone that has to make a right ruling or judgment call. Because even when you have a level head, even if you can, you know, talk to someone, and you're not drunk, and you can have a conversation, you can hold a conversation. That doesn't always mean that, because wine causes you to feel happy, elated, and that might influence
Your
your
judgment.
right.
Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. And the fact that he's a king, like, right, most likely when he's writing Proverbs, that's something his mother probably commanded him. So he's a king, even not just a prince, he's a king over Israel that has to discern between all these cases and has to, even supernaturally know who's in the wrong. Where, for example, like you had the two women, one had the baby die and all that, he would have to be extremely sober to make the right decision there.
Yeah, that's right.
So I definitely see your point with that. Yeah. So, and I think a lot of times we have to look at Proverbs too. Like a lot of the context about wine is really drunkenness. A lot of the times, the majority of the times, maybe not in that case, but the majority of the times when he's talking about being given into wine or strong drink, like the phrase "given" is referring to like you're almost like addicted to it. You're almost like you need to get drunk. You need to. It's not just having a glass. It's like, okay, I'm given in. When you're given into something, that's like an addiction. So when it talks about someone's given into strong drink or wine, they're getting way past tipsy, way past that. So I think a lot of the traditions with the Baptist religion and all that, they don't look at context of those verses, and they think that the Bible's like saying don't drink alcohol at all. When in actuality it's just telling you not to get drunk.
They're way out of.
So, but yeah, for princes and kings, I can see that for that reasoning why she would tell her son not to do that. It would make sense. Like, what's really weird though is she calls him Lemuel. I never understood that. What was the purpose of that? I don't know if, in Proverbs where she says, "Oh, Lemuel's not for princes to drink wine." And then I think later in the chapter it talks about give it to a poor person that's in sorrow and all that. I would have to go back to that, but I know the chapter Brother Yahusha is talking about.
Where is this limp? That's I never thought that she was talking to Solomon when she said, "Oh, limp." I could be wrong on that. I probably am wrong in that. I just never.
The only reason I thought it was her commanding Solomon is because I think in earlier chapters he's talking about his father's commands and his mother's commands, and it seems like these are things that he's writing down that were commanded him by David and his mother. That's the only reason I'm thinking of that. I could be wrong as well. But the Lemuel, let me search for the Lemuel verse where she like.
It doesn't seem to be in the Septuagint actually.
Huh.
It's chapter 31.
Yeah, chapter 1.
No, 31.
Oh, 31. Oh, yeah.
31 says the words of King Lemuel, but that's only in the Masoretic.
Weird. Wonder why they wouldn't want you to think that it's. I wonder why they would want you to think that it's not Solomon and that it's this person Lemuel. That's very strange.
To be something in this chapter, then something more in this chapter.
Yeah, I wonder if there's something hinting to Yahusha or something. Yeah, in the Septuagint version, actually, instead of Lemuel, it says, "My words have been spoken by Yahuwah." The word answer the king, whom his mother says it right here. Yep.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
I was just gonna say it actually gives the answer right here. It says, whom his mother instructed.
Huh.
So it actually tells you in the Septuagint that his mother's the one commanding him this. So yeah, it seems like it's who's his mother, Bathsheba, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like it would indicate that Bathsheba is commanding him this.
Yeah.
My son, what the words of Yahuwah, my firstborn son, I speak to you, son of my womb, son of my vows. Give not your wealth to women, your mind in living to remorse. Yeah, too bad us men don't know about this verse today. A lot of us men screw up with the whole prenup thing. Do all things with counsel, drink wine with counsel. So it says drink wine with counsel. So not don't drink wine at all. Drink wine with counsel. So meaning like self-control. It's basically what she's saying. Princes are prone to anger. Let them not drink wine. So this seems to give the answer for verse 4 here. So it's that she's worried about her son. If he drinks wine, he's going to be prone to get angry easily, which, you know, for some people it happens. Not for everyone.
No.
So I think she's mainly just kind of giving him advice. Like, listen, you're, you know, kings or princes are prone to anger. You probably shouldn't drink wine. You know, that's probably what the context of that is. But she says right before it, though, drink wine with counsel. So the idea that it would be wrong for him to drink at all, that would actually contradict the prior verse. So there has to be a context for this. There has to be, I think it's the amount of wine that she's actually probably concerned with. You know, she doesn't want him partying and then getting angry out of nowhere when a decision has to be made. And then, you know, because it says, lest they drink and forget wisdom. Now, again, if I drink a cup of wine, like one glass, I'm not going to forget wisdom. So if you look at the next verse, it gives you context too. It says, lest they drink and forget wisdom, meaning forget the Torah. For me to forget the Torah, like not know what his word says and what the law says, I would have to drink a couple of glasses of wine. I would have to drink a decent bit. And be not able to judge the poor rightly. So the whole context to me, in my opinion, here, the Septuagint makes it a little bit more clear that it's talking about drunkenness. It's not talking about drinking in general. That's bad for a king to drink in general. Because all throughout history, kings, you know, would have banquets and would have a 1 or 2 glasses of wine. But certain kings would get themselves drunk, act like a fool, get angry very easily and act a fool, and, you know, and then be deceived in certain ways. I think there's a story in the Apocrypha about a king that did that, if I'm not mistaken. I forget if it's in one of the books. I forget if it's Esther or Judith. I forget which one of them. But it talks about a king that got like really, really drunk and then got deceived by it, got killed.
What do you mean by Esther being in the Apocrypha?
Oh, well, I was just saying in general, like, I forget if it was part of the editions of Esther or if it was in Judith, because I remember reading in a Catholic Bible way back long ago, there was a story somewhere along there that a king got really drunk and then he got killed. I'm thinking it's in Judith, probably thinking. But even though it's not scripture, just the concept of the danger of drinking too much and then you lose.
Well, it happened in Daniel too with Belshazzar.
Yeah, Belshazzar is another great example. Drinking way too much as a prince or a king, and then you know, actually cursing Yahuwah by his own drunkenness. You know, by, you know, especially you know, in the movie version, they kind of expound it and have him saying, you know, desert deity of Judah, and, you know, him mocking Yahuwah because of his drunkenness. So I think that goes along the same lines of what Proverbs 31 is saying. It's actually talking about drunkenness of a prince rather than just having a glass of wine. That's kind of where I side on that. Because you know, just the fact that she says in the very next verse, you'll forget wisdom, you'll forget the Torah. It takes a decent amount of alcohol to do that. So you're not going to forget the Torah if you have like one beer or one glass of wine. That's just my opinion on that. But very interesting. I'm glad we actually talked about this because this also shows that the Masoretic text changes verse 1 of Proverbs 31. So I'm going to make a note of that. And it actually adds in this Lemuel character, probably to throw people off that it's, for some reason, they didn't want people to know that Solomon's mother, Bathsheba, was commanding him this for whatever reason.
I wonder if it has anything to do with the fact that this is, in my opinion, you have like everyone's always talked about, Proverbs 31 woman, right? But look at that and you look deeper into that, it shows how Yahusha's bride is supposed to be.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I wonder if it has anything to do with that.
Very possible. Yeah. And there's a lot of more obvious verses here in the Septuagint version that definitely hints to Yahusha, and even in it, open your mouth with the word of Yahuwah and judge all fairly. So the word of Yahuwah is what's causing him to rightly rule fairly. Plead the cause of the poor and the weak. Who shall find a virtuous woman? Another interesting difference. I know we did a study about this a year or so ago, but another interesting difference when you read this whole chapter is once you get down to verse 31, it's a lot different. It says, or actually verse 30, it says, charms are false, woman's beauty is vain, but for it is a wise woman that is berucht, and let her praise the fear of Yahuwah. So rather than let her be praised, it says, let her praise the fear of the Father. So it takes the focus off of the woman. Versus the Masoretic text puts the focus on the woman. And that's kind of interesting to me. But yeah, there's a lot of differences actually in Proverbs 31. There's a lot of differences between the two manuscripts. I definitely can see this as a way that the body should be trying to be a set-apart bride to Yahusha. And vice versa, kind of even in a physical aspect, this chapter shows us men how to be with our human wives even. We should be finding a virtuous woman, not a strange woman. And how we should be acting is we should be able to find a woman that we can fully trust in, because it says the heart of the husband trusts in her as much as one shall stand in no need of fine spoils. So this shows like how a real marriage in Yahuwah's eyes should be. You should be able to find, the woman that you want to find a woman that you can fully 110% trust. So, yeah. Proverbs. Yep, go ahead, bro.
I think that the only way that you could even possibly know that is if she or he is completely sold out to Yahuwah. If not, then
yeah, yeah. And I think that's the purpose of that chapter, because it compares her to the strange woman. The strange woman, all intents purposes, physically, would be a heathen woman. And I'm not trying to throw shade or stones at anyone, but if we take the biblical understanding of what a strange woman is versus a virtuous woman is a woman that's, like you said, completely under Yahuwah's covering. A strange woman would be like a woman of the Gentiles. Like you'll see Yahuwah telling them, listen, don't intermarry with them. Don't take their daughters for your sons, and don't give your sons for their daughters. So a strange woman, literally is a Gentile heathen woman. So yeah, we obviously should not be trying to find a wife just based on her beauty. And I think that's the purpose of Proverbs 31 too. It says, charms are false. If a woman charms us and she, beguiles us with her speech, that's false. Beauty is vain, meaning beauty is going to fade away. You're choosing a wife just for her attractiveness. Guess what? It's going to fade away. So there's a lot of wisdom in this chapter from Proverbs. It's one of my favorite chapters, Proverbs chapter 31.
And I believe Yahuwah really, really teaches people something with a little bit of, I don't know if you want to call it vengeance or what, but very often the knockout beautiful women of this world, when they age bad.
Yeah.
They age bad.
Because the
They don't
drugs.
age like women that are just sort of cute or whatever. They age better. But these gorgeous, women of the world, they don't often age very well when they get up in years. So I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors to that. The diets of the world,
True. The lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Drugs, heavy, going back to alcohol, heavy amounts of alcohol over the years. If you're
For sure.
a binge drinker, that's going to
Smoking.
eventually mess with your health.
Yes, well.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the aging and beauty going away that quickly has to do with the way they treat their bodies.
Yeah, that's true too.
But the beauty, I think what Yahuwah is talking about here is more or less that eventually the beauty is going to fade away. So if you're only choosing a woman for her attractiveness in your old age, what's going to happen? If you never actually was attracted to her personality, if you never were attracted to the person she is, what's going to happen when you're in your old age?
Yeah, you won't have anything left.
But yeah, the strange woman I've always interpreted literally as like a heathen Gentile woman that is unfaithful, is trying to seduce you, trying to get you into her bed, which multiple times Proverbs talks about that. Don't go away, the strange woman. Her gates go down to Sheol. I think the Septuagint even says her bed is down in Sheol with the giants.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, very, very bad. So yeah, I think that was the whole purpose really for that chapter was Solomon's mother kind of warning him of certain things. And I know from my experience, liquor can also, if you drink enough of it, can also lower your inhibitions when you're not thinking about what type of woman you're with.
That's right.
And you'll start, I think modern day they call it love drunk or whatever. You'll start thinking you have these feelings for this girl because your inhibitions are lowered and this and that. And, so that could be what she's referring to too in the chapter about liquor causes a lot of problems. We have when we drink too much of it. So
I think another issue is, you can be unequally yoked to a believer. Something that I've seen recently with just brothers and sisters. I won't go into detail, but if you're seeking out a relationship, if you're seeking out a wife, or if a wife is seeking out a husband, as the man who's supposed to be the one that looks out for the wife, who is the head of the household, it's just my personal opinion that man needs to be farther along in his walk. He needs to be farther along in his understanding rather than the opposite. If you're a woman in the Torah and following Yahushua, you have no business trying to seek a man that is just barely coming into the walk. That's a major issue.
Yeah, because the husband, just to expound on what Brother Yahushua is saying, is that biblically the man's supposed to be the priest of the home, not the woman. I know this is going to sound very misogynistic, what I'm about to say, but it's true. It's scriptural. Okay.
Oh, yes, it is.
The man is supposed to be the head. The man is supposed to be the priest of the home. Okay. The woman should not be farther along in her walk. So much to the extent that the husband's just coming in and barely converted.
Or being taught by the woman.
Being taught and being, you know,
Exactly. No, that's true.
basically where the wife would be like almost a spiritual master
Yeah.
or teacher, lording teacher over the husband, and you have the roles reversed, unfortunately. So in actuality, the husband's supposed to teach the wife. The husband's supposed to be farther along. So unequally yokedness is there's a lot more gray areas to that than we realize, especially when we come out of the church, we come out of Christianity, and we've been thought to believe, especially when you first come into this walk, you still believe that Christians are your brothers and your sisters. So you believe that you could be equally yoked with a Christian and just get them on the same page with Torah. You know, I would say that that's even more obvious unequally yoked situation, just because these two belief systems, they don't serve the same Elohim. The Christian church does not serve Yahuwah. So I even tell brothers, you know, if even if you got, you know, a woman that you really are attracted to and you like, and she seems nice, but she's a Christian, you gotta stay away from her.
Stop.
She's not in Torah. She's not in the true biblical faith. She's still being deceived in the circus. That's even unequal yokedness. So that's why I tell people, like, it and obviously sometimes you don't have choices in it. I know we have sisters that have been married, you know, 30, 40 years. That's a whole other ballgame. That's kind of the area where Paul talks about you're trying to win your husband, but you don't use that as an excuse to willfully marry someone that's of another faith. So I want to make a distinction there. When Paul's talking about that, he's talking about people that are already married.
Right.
He's not talking about someone looking for a wife or a wife looking for a husband. He's talking about if you're already married to this person, you know, try your best to stay married to them for the sake that Yahuwah might use you to save them.
Yeah.
That's what Paul is saying. And so I just want to explain that distinction there. So what me and Brother Yahushua are talking about are like people intentionally getting married that are unequally yoked from the beginning.
That's right.
That's not a good idea to do.
No.
You know, if you realize someone is even of this own faith, way, you know, way different from you in your maturity, then probably it's not a good idea. Unless it's the husband that's at the maturity, and the woman's the one that's just being converted or just coming into this faith, that's a whole different story. But when you have the woman that's farther along, it can create some issues. First of all, eventually it's going to create a headship issue. It's eventually going to create that, because it's going to get the woman feeling like I'm his teacher. I'm the one that taught him, and it's going to get the woman puffed up, and then it's going to get the woman thinking she's the head. And so, you know, and again, I know we've been brainwashed with the whole feminist movement. So some of you out there might be wanting already to turn off your YouTube for what I'm saying. But I'm just letting you guys know the truth. Yahuwah always intended it from all the way from the garden after the fall. He intended the man to be the head. And it goes all the way back to the garden. It says, you know, because you've done this, he tells Kua, because you have done this, your husband is now going to rule over you. So, you know, that's a big deal. So, you know, I agree 110% with what Brother Yahushua said, that, you know, depending on the situation, if the man's not far along enough to where he can be an actual spiritual priest to a woman, to the woman that he wants to marry, you probably should hold off until he's farther along. You know, maybe betroth one another for a longer period of time and let him get more mature. That would be my advice. But anyway, so We're at the last chapter for today. I think for time purposes, I think I'll be reading Exodus 30 for us. Okay, so let's see here. The altar of incense, and you shall make the altar incense of incorruptible wood, and you shall make it a cubit in length and a cubit in breadth. It shall be square, and the height of it shall be of 2 cubits. Its horn shall be of the same piece, and you shall gild its grate with pure gold, and its sides round about, and its horns. And you shall make for it a wreathen border of gold round about. Okay. And you shall make under the wreathen border 2 rings of pure gold, and shall make it the 2 corners on the 2 sides, and they shall be the bearings for the staves, so as to bear it with them. And you shall make the staves of the incorruptible wood, and shall gild them with gold. All right, verse 6. And you shall set it before the veil that is over the ark of witness, wherein I will make myself known to you from there. Okay, so, all right. And Mom, what does yours say in verse 6? I'm just curious.
It said, put the altar in front of the curtain that is before the ark of the testimony, before the atonement cover that is over the testimony, where I will meet with you.
Okay. I was just double checking. Sometimes it's amazing to write a text instead of it saying I will make myself known to you. Sometimes it will say my presence. So yeah, just wanted to double check there. And Aaron shall burn upon it fine compound incense every morning. Whensoever he trims the lamps, he shall burn incense upon it. Okay. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha. I see you got your hand up.
So this is in the most set apart, right? The set apart. Like,
Yeah, I think it has to be, yeah. Because you have the inner veil, if I'm not mistaken, where he told them to put the mercy seat and all that, that would be in the innermost veil. So that would be in the most set apart place where Yahuwah makes himself known to them. So that's kind of like a parallel to Solomon and Herod's temple where the veil torn, like that verse that talks about the veil torn. I think that would have been the inner veil where Yahuwah would have made himself known to them even in Herod's temple. So there seems to be a connection there with the veil.
I didn't realize that the altar of incense was in the most set apart place. Because I was under the impression that they only went in there once a year, but maybe that was only to pour out the blood upon the mercy seat just once a year.
Well, let me see here, because when my mom just
Kind of goes on into that through the next few verses.
let's see, it says you shall set it before the veil. Okay, yeah, you're right. So the altar of incense seems to be outside before the veil. Over the ark of witness, wherein I make myself known to you from there. So it's just worded very weirdly. It's saying that the altar of incense you're going to put before the veil, but the veil, behind the veil is actually where he's making himself known, because we see in multiple other verses where Yahuwah says, I will come before the mercy seat between the cherubs. He will make himself known within the inner veil. So I don't think it's saying that he's making himself known at the altar of incense. He's just saying the veil is where he's making himself known. Because you got an outer veil and then you got the inner veil where you have the most set apart place. So yeah, I think that's what it's saying. And then it's talking about burning the incense in verse 7.
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture right now. What it's showing is so you have the most set apart where the ark of the testimony. Then you have the veil. Then right behind the veil, you have like right next to it the altar of incense in the same room that has the table of showbread and the menorah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just worded weird then.
Yeah, it's worded very weird. Yeah, before sounds very weird. Outside would have made a little bit better. A little bit better. Before is like, before can mean in front of something, doesn't mean necessarily it's outside. Like without would have been a better British word to use there. Because without means outside, like out without the can. That probably would have been a better word to use for Breton. Let's see here. Compound incense in the morning. Lamps shall burn incense upon it. So we have verse 8 here. When Aaron lights the lamps in the evening, he shall burn incense upon it. A constant incense offering always before Yahuwah for their generations. And you shall not offer strange incense on it, and offering made by fire, a sacrifice you shall not pour drink offering upon it. Now, this is key here because in Leviticus 10, this is exactly what Nadab and Abihu did. So right here, Yahuwah's warning them. So a lot of people will say, like atheists will say, oh, that's so mean. Oh, he killed them without warning. No, he didn't.
No, he never.
Right here, Exodus 30, verse 9, he warns them.
Yeah.
So in essence, they're doing it after being warned.
That's right.
Just like the golden calf incident, if I'm not mistaken. So Yahuwah always warns his people.
Always.
And again and again and again and again. Because Yahuwah knows our hearts. He knows we're stupid and wicked. And he's like, all right, listen, I know you're going to think to do this. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Don't even think about it. I love that. I love that scene in the walk the line where he's like, he told him, don't even think about seeing it and doing it.
Don't think about it. Don't think about
don't
doing
think about doing it.
He's talking about the apple and
the forbidden fruit.
The forbidden fruit. We're not to think about it. Not to think about seeing it. Don't think about singing about it. Don't think about it.
Oh man. Oh,
that is a funny part of that movie. That really is.
Once in the year shall make atonement. So make an atonement on his horns. This is what Brother Yahusha was talking about.
This is what we're talking about.
He shall purge it with the blood of purification for their generations. It's most set apart to Yahuwah. That's interesting. It says blood of purification. And we know that in the Brit Hadashah, Yahusha's blood, according to Paul, purifies our souls. So that's interesting. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe saying, man, my throat today. And if you take account of the children of Yasharel and surveying of them, and they shall give everyone. Okay, so now this is talking about the silver. This is talking about the ransom for their souls. Right. Before the new covenant, they actually had to purchase their own souls.
Yeah.
And Peter actually talks about this. He says, you are not purchased by silver. You are not purchased by gold. So what Peter's actually saying in the New Testament, he's quoting from here, saying, no, you have not been purchased by things that fade away. You've been purchased by Yahusha's blood. So that is one of the differences in the new covenant. It seems like this is no longer, in the law in the new covenant, because Yahusha's blood permanently purchases us. So we don't have to ransom our own souls. So it says, surveying of them, they shall give everyone a ransom for his own soul to Yahuwah. Then there shall not be among them a destruction in visiting of them. So, yeah. This is what they shall give as many as pass the survey. I hate this Greek word. I can never pronounce this correctly. I'm gonna just say drachma. It's probably the same thing as drachma, didrach, which is according to the didrach of the set apart place. 20 oboli to the didrachim, but the half of the didrachim is the offering to Yahuwah. So shekel would be in your Masoretic text Bibles there. Everyone that passes the survey from 20 years old and upward shall give offering to Yahuwah. The rich shall not give more, the poor shall not give less. Than half the didrachim in giving the offering to Yahuwah to make atonement for your souls. And you shall take the money of the offering from the children of Yasharel and shall give it for the service of the tabernacle witness, and it shall be to the children of Yasharel a memorial before Yahuwah to make atonement for your souls. Now it's at the brazen laver or the bronze laver. Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, make a brazen laver or bronze laver and a brazen base for it for washing, and you shall put it between the tabernacle of witness and the altar, and you shall pour forth water into it. And Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and their feet with water from it. So this is almost like what in the Hebrew culture they would call like a ritual washing, like what's called a mitzvah, So believe it or not, baptism is not a foreign thing to their culture. I mean, they did mikvahs all the time. Whensoever they shall go into the tabernacle witness, they shall wash themselves with water, so they shall not die. This probably even foreshadows the immersion of Yahusha, even the fact that it says they will wash with water so they don't die. Whensoever they advance to the altar to do service and to offer the whole burnt offerings to Yahuwah. They shall wash their hands and feet with water whensoever they shall go into the tabernacle witness. They shall wash themselves with water, that they die not, and it shall be for them a perpetual statute for him and his posterity after them, or after him. So the set apart anointing oil. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, so now we're at verse 23. Do you also take the sweet herbs, the flour, choice myrrh, 500 shekels, and the half of this 250 shekels of sweet smelling cinnamon, and 250 shekels of sweet smelling calamus, and of cassia 500 shekels of the set apart place, and a hin of olive oil. And you shall make it a set apart anointing oil, a perfumed ointment by the art of the perfumer. It shall be a set apart anointing oil, and you shall anoint with it the tabernacle witness and the ark of the tabernacle witness. He's talking about the ark of the covenant there, and all its furniture, and the candlestick and all its furniture, and the altar of incense, and the altar of whole burnt offerings and all its furniture, and the table and all its furniture, and the laver. And you shall set them apart, and they shall be most set apart. Everyone that touches them shall be set apart, and you shall anoint Aaron and his sons and set them apart, that they may minister to me as priests. And you shall speak to the children of Yasharel, saying, this shall be to you a set apart anointing oil throughout your generations. On man's flesh it shall not be poured. You shall not make for yourselves according to this composition is set apart, and shall be set apart to you. Whosoever shall make it in like manner, and whosoever shall give it to a stranger, shall be destroyed from among his people. We were just talking about this earlier, how there are specific things Yahuwah gives to the Levites, and that we are not to be copied.
Right.
So we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah, that's it.
This one, there's no gray area. He's like saying, you
Don't
even
make this formula.
you give it to a stranger, you make it for yourself, dead, like that. So yeah, this one is not a gray area at all. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, take for yourself sweet herbs, stacked onika, sweet galbanum. So this is another incense. This is I forget what the difference. I think one is ointment and the other one is like incense,
Powder.
like a powder. Sweet galbanum, transparent frankincense. There shall be an equal weight of each, and they shall make it with perfumed incense, tempered with the art of the perfumer, a pure set apart work. Okay. And of these you shall beat them some small, and you shall put it before the witnesses or testimonies in the ark of witness, where I will make myself known to you, and it shall be to you a most set apart incense. Now, what does yours say, Mom? Does it say, I will make myself known to you?
I will meet with you.
Okay. All right.
Where I will meet with you.
Okay.
And again, don't make this formula.
Yep. You shall not make any for yourselves according to this composition it shall be to you a set apart thing for Yahuwah. So again, you have two different compositions that he's talking about for incense. And he's telling you for both of them not to make them for yourselves.
Yep.
Whosoever shall make any in like manner so as to smell it shall perish from his people. So very serious warning there.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. So we see that this is pretty much the last bit of this. We had the incense altar and the whole burnt offering altar being mentioned, and then you had the incenses and the anointing oil composition being made. So yeah, very interesting. All right, so I think that's going to be it for today. I think that concludes our Sabbath reading for today. So we did, for those that missed it, this video will be uploaded. This was Exodus 26 to 30. This will be uploaded on the YouTube page, so please keep an eye out for it. So I'm going to be, Yahuwah willing, if I have time tonight, I'm going to share it on Facebook as well. All right, so for everyone out there, just have all of our brothers and sisters have a great rest of your Shabbat. Yahuwah willing, we'll see you next